Welcome into the Fantasy Football Diagnostics Podcast, where we provide you with your weekly diagnosis of everything fantasy football. Whether it's season-long leagues, dynasty, DFS, or sometimes even IDP, we got you covered all year long. What's good? You know the vibes. Jon Jeune here at the real Jon Jeune _FF, and welcome back to another live episode of Fantasy Football Diagnostics Podcast. It is Tuesday, October 21st, 2025. Appreciate y'all for locking in with me. We're officially in week 8, and as if the injuries weren't bad enough already, this week hit us with even more injuries. Jaden Daniels, Darren Waller, Kendre Miller, just to name a few. Plus, we've got 6 teams on bye this week. The Cardinals, the Lions, the Jaguars, the Raiders, the Rams, and the Seahawks. So, yeah, the waiver wire is going to be critical this week. I'm breaking down all the top ads across every position, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, defensive, special teams, and we'll talk through which of these players are worth your top waiver claim or worth, blowing the full fab budget on, who's more of a stash, and who's just a 1-week plug-and-play type of guy. So, help you survive these bye weeks, right? So before we dive in, make sure you check out the Fantasy Football Diagnostics Patreon. That's where you'll find my weekly waiver wire article, expanded ranking, Sunday morning Q&A, and the 100% free Fantasy Football Diagnostics cheat sheet. All the other perks, they come to you for just $1 a month. So you can join for free and upgrade anytime at patreon.com/FFDX. All right, if you are watching live on YouTube, Twitch, X, drop in the chat. Let me know where you're tuning in from, who you're targeting on the waivers this week. How'd your matchups go? Did you win? Did you lose? I want to hear all of it. Let's get into it. And the Week 8 waiver show starts now. So, like I said, y'all, there was quite a bit of injuries this week. We'll kind of run through them one by one as we typically do here. So, Atlanta quarterback Michael Penix Jr., he suffered a low leg injury that's now being called a bone bruise day to day. Marvin Harrison Jr., he actually returned from the concussion. He's not supposed to be on this list, so I'm going to take him off. But Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens, he did not practice on Monday after the bye week, so that's not encouraging news there. So we would like to see him at least get a practice in, coming off the bye week. So we'll have to continue to monitor that. But that's somebody that obviously I know fantasy managers are counting on in a big way. Chicago tight end Cole Kmet left the game with a back injury, did not return. Carolina quarterback Bryce Young, he's dealing with a high ankle sprain, did not return. Green Bay wide receiver Dontavian Wicks, he injured his calf against the Cardinals, did not return. Miami tight end Darren Waller suffered a torn, or sorry, not a torn pec. I don't know if it's torn, but he suffered his pectoral injury, did not return in the game against Cleveland. New Orleans running back Kendre Miller, this is just terrible news, suffered a torn ACL, is out for the remainder of the season. And then, probably the headliner news of the weekend, Washington quarterback Jaden Daniels suffered what looks like a pretty significant hamstring injury. He did not return to the game. He's obviously he's already been he dealt with that knee injury earlier in the year that kept him out 2 games, and now has this hamstring injury, which we'll have to see the prognosis there, how long he'll potentially be out for. But it did look pretty bad in the game. And then there was 2 more injuries that happened last night in last night's games. Mike Evans, he suffered a concussion, and that's probably like not even the most the injury that's going to keep him out the longest, let's say. He also suffered a shoulder injury, broken clavicle. So it looks like he'll miss most of the remainder of the season. So Ibuka, Kate Otten, those guys probably get rest of season bumps here. And then Tez Johnson as well. And then Nico Collins, he suffered a concussion last night in the later game. So, he will he could miss some time. We saw Marvin Harrison go through the protocol very quickly, but that's typically uncommon there. So the expectation would be that he misses at least a week there. So all right, let's move on to through the waiver show. Let's get to these quarterbacks here, starting with a guy who's been on. I have not deleted his name for like 5 weeks, right? Um, New York Giants quarterback Jackson Dart, available in 68% of Yahoo leagues. He was going into Monday Night Football, the QB2 on the week. I don't know if that changed. I actually doubt that it did. But like I said, QB2 on the week going into Monday Night Football. Dart has finished as a QB1 in 3 of 4 starts this year, scoring no less than 15 fantasy points. He's showing the steady floor he brings with his legs, but also showing off that ceiling a little bit as well. I think he should be added in all 12 team formats. When you just look at obviously what he's able to do with his legs, that's the cheat code that we typically look for. And then when you get these blow up games, these high scoring games like he found himself in this back and forth game against Denver. I mean, it wasn't really back and forth until the fourth quarter, but still, like, he's throwing the ball down the field, he's taking chances, he's running in for a touchdown. Those things is what leads to these blow up games like the one we saw from Dart. Next up, let's look at Houston quarterback CJ Stroud, available in 44% of Yahoo leagues. Look, he did not have a good game last night against that Seattle defense, but he now enters week 8 against the San Francisco defense, allowing the 10th most fantasy points to the quarterback position over their last 3 games. We'll obviously have to see what the situation is with Nico Collins. Feel a lot better when about CJ Stroud when Nico Collins is on the field. But this is something that, with the bye weeks and everything, we might have to take a look at CJ Stroud regardless, just given the matchup. Next up, look at Green Bay quarterback. Oh, Green Bay. Wow, that is a typo of all typos. Pittsburgh quarterback Aaron Rodgers, available in 72% of Yahoo leagues, had his second highest outing since week 1 this past week, and now faces his former team in the Green Bay Packers at home this weekend. He'll be highly motivated for this game, and he typically plays at his best in those moments. And the matchup is actually a really good one, as the Green Bay Packers have allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Just allowed a pretty big game to Jacoby Brissett there. So I think Aaron Rodgers, if he's available in your league, makes a ton of sense here as a quarterback option with these bye weeks. Next up, from one member of the Icy Hot Bowl to another, we'll go Cincinnati quarterback Joe Flacco, available in 88% of Yahoo leagues, had a massive week 7 performance, 342 yards and 3 passing touchdowns on the day. Now set to face the New York Jets defense at home that has allowed an average of 18.1 fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks over their last 3 games. And it's also a revenge game here for the 40-year-old, right? Spend some time with the Jets. I mean, who hasn't? Joe Flacco spent time with it at this point. But anyway, again, great matchup. He's got great weapons. So it makes a ton of sense to look to Joe Flacco here. Next up, we've got New Orleans quarterback Spencer Rattler, available in 93% of Yahoo leagues. Rattler probably had his worst real-life football game of the season with 4 turnovers on Sunday. But this time he's at home against a Tampa Bay defense that, pending the results of Monday Night Football, have allowed the 7th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. So, again, with the bye weeks and everything, you've got 6 teams on bye. Still some injuries that we have to potentially navigate here. So it makes a ton of sense if you were to go to Spencer Rattler in some deeper leagues. Now, let's the next guy on this list, let's talk about Atlanta quarterback Michael Penix Jr. He's available in 76% of Yahoo leagues. So Penix, I talked about this on the matchup show the other day, but he I was talking about him as a potential play in the matchup show, and then I think I like completely talked myself out of it. Right? We talk about the home. I brought up the home road splits, and he proved that the home road splits might actually be a thing with him. So luckily for us this week, he's at home against a Miami defense that's been pretty bad all season, and the fantasy points, the fantasy numbers over the last 3 games might not look that bad. They've had a couple of weeks that definitely brought down the average a bit with Bryce Young and Dylan Gabriel not being asked to do much as the run game is dominated. And that could very well happen here with Michael Penix. The only thing I will say though is that, Drake London, he's got to get his, and also Bijan Robinson, he's utilized as a pass catcher, a lot in this offense. And so there will be those opportunities for Bijan to make plays in the passing game, and that's whether he dumps it off to Bijan, he does the little touch pass to Bijan, all of that counts as passing yardage for Michael Penix. So I think that Michael Penix Jr. is a solid play, considering the health. Obviously, we'll have to monitor that as the week progresses. But all right, moving on to the running back position, and let's talk Chicago Bears running back Kyle Monangai, available in 93% of Yahoo leagues. He's definitely graduated from purely an insurance policy running back to somebody who needs to be on our radar. He had his highest snap rate of the season with 46% of the snaps. Also saw double-digit carries for the first time all season, turned 16 opportunities into 94 yards and a score. Swift is the lead back, but Monangai definitely showed well with his touches, and I think deserves some of our attention here. Moving on, let's talk about Arizona running back Bam Knight, available in 88% of Yahoo leagues still. He's on bye this week, but did lead the backfield in touches with 17 total touches as compared to 9 for Michael Carter. So, um, you know, again, he's on bye, but that kind of volume should not be left on our bench. We definitely got to get those guys, or sorry, not left on waivers. We got to get those guys on our bench. Obviously, again, not going to have a usable week for you this week, but um, should continue to be a guy that down the stretch here, especially as Trey Benson continues to recover from his injury, that we will look to provide some some relief there for us at the running back position. Moving on, let's talk about Houston running back Woody Marks, available in 47% of Yahoo leagues. Look, the overall production was not great yesterday. 10 carries, or the overall efficiency wasn't great, I should say. 10 carries, 15 yards. Did have 3 catches on 5 targets for 20 yards and a touchdown, 12 and a half PPR points. Um, somebody that I think we definitely need to continue to um, be patient with, right? There's going to be some ups and downs with him, but definitely outproduced Nick Chubb yesterday. Could say that was a form of the game script as well, for sure. But I think that like I said before, the Woody Marks makes a ton of sense as a guy to target in this Houston backfield, just because he has the pass catching ability. He has also shown that he can get it done on the ground as well. So, like I said, he out carried Nick Chubb. Was that a function of the score and the situation? Very much could have been so. But if Houston finds themselves in those types of situations more often than not, then Woody Marks will be your guy. All right, let's move on to a guy that I've been pounding the table for all year, and that's Atlanta running back Tyler Algier, available 62% of Yahoo leagues. And before you groan and moan and be like, I don't want Algier, hear me out, right? Hear me out. Like, usually in this spot, I put the same cookie cutter, Bijan's backup, should be rostered in all 12-team leagues, right? I'm not talking about that today. This week, he plays the Miami Dolphins. And with all of the bye weeks that we have, all the running backs that you can't play this week, right? You can't choose, you can't play the Cardinals running backs. You can't play the Lions running backs, and Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. You can't play Ashton Genty. You can't play Travis Etienne. You can't play Kyron Williams. And you can't choose which Seattle running back is going to screw you over this week. So that makes Algier playable against the Miami Dolphins, right? Like, if there's a game that Algier, obviously he had a game a couple weeks ago where he had like 15 carries and a touchdown. If there's a game where he replicates that, that's this week with a potentially banged up Michael Penix in a matchup where Miami can't stop the run to save their lives. They can't stop opposing running backs to save their lives. Like, Algier will be involved, right? So I look at it this week. Algier is gonna. I have a league where I have Algier, I have Bijan, I have Algier, and I'm gonna start them both because I think Algier is gonna bring some value this week against this Miami defense. All right, so let's move on to the next guy on this list, and let's talk Kansas City running back Brashard Smith. He's available in 94% of Yahoo leagues. Now, Smith was involved early as a pass catcher. I think he had 5 catches on 5 targets, if I'm not mistaken. But he also had 14 carries. Now, when did those 14 carries occur? In a game where the Kansas City Chiefs won 31-0. 10 of them came in the fourth quarter when the game was already decided. But I continue to think he's worth keeping an eye on down the stretch, right? As we move towards this season, right? Like we saw it with Pacheco early, like when he was a rookie, right? Like it was down the stretch that he ended up, overtaking the backfield. I forgot who he even overtook it from. Who did he overtake the backfield from? Anyway, not important. But Pacheco came in as a rookie. We saw him take those opportunities and, obviously didn't, fast forward to today. And he's been average at best. But Brashard Smith, he's got that explosive pass catching ability. Like I said, had 5 targets, caught all 5 of them, 42 receiving yards, and he was involved early as a receiver. So if that continues, and if he's maybe an injury away potentially from a larger role, and he already has the pass catching role as well, then there's an opportunity here for Brashard Smith to make an impact down the stretch in fantasy leagues. Next up, we got Tennessee running back Tyjae Spears, available in 71% of Yahoo leagues. Back-to-back weeks with 9 touches. Not a ton of value right now, but with bye weeks, he could find himself in PPR lineups. We got a question. Holtgren Football MM. Would you trade CeeDee Lamb and Quentin Johnston for JSN? That's an interesting one. I don't think I would do that. CeeDee Lamb, I mean, obviously JSN's on a heater right now, right? Like, he looks like one of the most unstoppable players in football, right? Like, screw the position, right? He looks like one of the most unstoppable receivers in football. But like with CeeDee Lamb, you have a guy who is playing in one of the top passing offenses in football, right? Their defense is terrible. They're going to find themselves in shootouts constantly, right? Yes, that whole pass game in Seattle funnels through JSN, but at some point they're going to have to start, and I say this now, and watch him finish the season with like 40% of the team targets. But at some point, right, they're going to have to start getting other guys involved. They're going to have to start getting the Cooper Kupps, the Torrey Hortons, the AJ Barners, Elijah Auroras. They're going to have to start getting those guys involved. Whereas in Dallas, it's like the opposite, where they're going to have to start getting CeeDee Lamb involved, right? Like, George Pickens has obviously had his time to shine with Dak Prescott. Jake Ferguson has, become like this red zone target there for Dak Prescott. I think CeeDee Lamb is, him working his way back in from the high ankle sprain. I want CeeDee. I want the CeeDee Lamb side, right? Like, not saying that if I had JSN, like, I'm not going to make that trade. Like, I'm going to make that trade. right? Because if I have JSN, there's probably no way I would hold JSN or I would trade JSN. But if you have the CeeDee Lamb and the Quentin Johnston side, like I would feel content there holding on to those players. Now, if you want to trade Quentin Johnston, right, that makes sense. If you want to package him with another running back to upgrade at receiver or to package him with another running back to upgrade at running back, I think that makes a ton of sense. But definitely appreciate the question, Holgren Football MN. All right, let's move on. Speaking of wide receivers, let's move on to the wide receiver position. Let's talk New England wide receiver Kayshon Boutte, available in 91% of Yahoo leagues, back-to-back weeks in the end zone for Boutte. Would love to see more than 2 targets, but made the most of them. Next matchup, a bit tougher against Cleveland, but has some useful matchups down the stretch. So I don't know if he's playable this week, but I think he's worth having on your bench as a guy that you can play in matchups going forward, whether you got bye weeks, injuries, you just need a flex play. I think he makes a ton of sense. Moving on, let's talk. I'm going to keep talking about this guy, Las Vegas wide receiver Trey Tucker, available in 50% of Yahoo leagues. He's on bye this week. Can't help you, but I think as he's continued to have this role here as the top target in the Raiders offense, especially with Brock Bowers out, and especially now that Jacoby Myers has missed last week. And then there's the baked in upside of like, what if Jacoby Myers gets traded, right? Then Trey Tucker sees even more opportunities, more targets there. Moving on, and this is probably the last time I'm going to talk about this guy because his rostership is going to go up. I needed to see him. I need to see him get above that 70% before we stop talking about him. But New York Giants wide receiver Wan'Dale Robinson, available in 33% of Yahoo leagues. He had a massive week again in week 7, 12 targets on the day, has been solid, will continue to be solid as the New York Giants lack options in the passing attack. People probably were fading Wan'Dale Robinson in this matchup here against the Denver Broncos. If you listened to the Friday show, you probably did not. Hopefully you did not. But again, another great PPR day for Wan'Dale Robinson. All right, moving on. Let's talk Indianapolis wide receiver Alec Pierce, available in 91% of Yahoo leagues. Had a big PPR day for Alec Pierce here. Caught 5 of 10 targets for 98 receiving yards. All were season highs for him. Now Downs definitely missed some time there. I think he had the concussion there, so that could lead to increased production. That could have led to the increased production rather, but still definitely worth a look here, especially because Downs really only plays in 3 wide receiver sets as the primary slot receiver. So if Alec Pierce is playing and a lot of those 2 wide receiver sets, he's on the field a lot more often. I think when you consider what Alec Pierce has been in the league, he's been a bona fide deep threat, a guy that can get down the field. I think it's definitely a good fit between him and this offense and the play style. So Pierce definitely worth a look. Next up, Atlanta wide receiver Darnell Mooney, available in 71% of Yahoo leagues. Health has been, the biggest roadblock for Mooney so far this season. He did catch 3 of 5 targets for 68 receiving yards, and in week 7 should be the number 2 wide receiver for the Atlanta offense moving forward. And, there are options in this offense, right? You've got obviously Bijan at the backfield as a priority for the Falcons. Kyle Pitts has been playing well for the Falcons as well. But Mooney's going to see these games. He's going to see these games where he's, targeted a bunch like he was several weeks ago when he had 11 targets, did not convert on them, but did see those targets and then missed some time with injury. So kind of a forgotten man there, but he's about as cheap of some volume that you could get in a potent offense that plays really well when the quarterback is at home. So let's move on to the next wide receiver here. Let's talk Denver wide receiver Troy Franklin. I know you guys are probably tired of hearing about Troy Franklin, available in 79% of Yahoo leagues. Look, last week, not exactly how we drew it up. Did see 10 targets, scored a touchdown, had a 2-point conversion. Now has an even better matchup this week against the Dallas Cowboys. Again, only caught 3 of the 10 targets. The touchdown, not like how you would think, oh, like Troy Franklin scored a touchdown. Like, no, Troy Franklin caught a deflected touchdown, but it still counts. And then the 2-point conversion, that was legitimately a target towards him. So, but the matchup this week, even better against the Dallas Cowboys. So, definitely looking forward to this matchup here for Troy Franklin. Uh, Also, in Denver, we've got the Denver wide receiver Marvin Mims available in 77% of Yahoo leagues. Looks like 2% of y'all like Marvin Mims more than you guys like Troy Franklin. And 2% of y'all were right this week. Had a more efficient day than Franklin, caught 6 of 7 targets for 85 receiving yards, while also adding a 13-yard rush. Now, again, has a nice matchup here with Dallas on deck. Now, you may wonder which of these guys I prefer and why. And, obviously with these numbers, you'd be like, "Oh, John, you like obviously prefer Marvin Mims," but you always talk about Troy Franklin. And the reason I talk about Troy Franklin a lot more than I talk about Marvin Mims is because of the routes and the snaps. Right? Troy Franklin operates as the true number 2 receiver in this offense. Is on the field more than Marvin Mims. Runs more routes than Marvin Mims. Now, obviously, Marvin Mims gets some of those design touches, these scheme touches, which provides, I think, like a higher floor for him. And we see the efficient day that he had. But if you're looking for, who's going to be on the field, who's going to be running the routes, who's going to be getting the targets potentially, Troy Franklin would be that guy. Like I said, had 10 targets on Sunday. So I think it's a little bit stickier here than the scheme design touches here for Marvin Mims. All right, moving on. Let's talk Carolina wide receiver Carolina wide receiver Xavier Legette, available in 94% of Yahoo leagues. We'll talk about Tez Johnson in a minute, but Xavier Legette, I'm not the biggest believer in Legette, right? I think he's got all the physical tools in the world. I just don't look at him and see a guy that, at least right now, right? I'm not of the frame of mind that players suck and they'll forever suck and they can never get better. Not even to say that Xavier Legette sucks, but there are people like that are like, oh, this player sucks. I'll never pick up this player. And then it's like, flash forward 3 years later, and it's like, oh, wow, that player is actually pretty good. Like Quentin Johnston, remember him? Yeah, people thought he sucked, but turns out the guy's actually not bad at football. Anyway, Xavier Legette, I'm not a believer right now that he will consistently produce as a wide receiver right now, but did see 11 targets in his last game, caught 9 of them for 92 receiving yards, so easily had the best game of his career. Let's see if he can replicate that with Buffalo on deck and Andy Dalton at quarterback potentially, because Bryce Young had the high ankle sprain that he suffered, left the game. And it seemed like a lot of that production came from, playing with Andy Dalton there. So, all right. So next up, let's talk Tampa Bay wide receiver Tez Johnson, available in 84% of Yahoo leagues. Now, Tez Johnson had nine targets, 4 receptions, 58 yards, and a touchdown. Tez Johnson looks pretty good, man. I mean, I think he had a poor combine, right? I think he ran, he's like a $165 or something like that. But everyone was thinking he was going to run like crazy fast at the combine. And if I'm remembering correctly, he did not run. He ran a 4.51 at the NFL scouting combine, which is like fast, right? It's still fast. I think people just expected him to run that much faster, considering, how, considering that he's like 150, 160 pounds. But, went later in the draft. I think he was like a 6th round pick, if I'm not mistaken. But besides the point, talented player out of Oregon, and the reason why we're talking about him again now is the fact that Mike Evans, he suffered the shoulder injury, will miss the remainder of the season. So Tez Johnson is kind of walking in here to a situation where, obviously Chris Godwin is still on the mend. He's going to work his way back from the injury that he's dealing with. But I think Tez Johnson has earned a role in the offense here. So, Yeah, he's a guy I think needs to be prioritized, considering the injury here of Mike Evans. Moving on, let's talk Green Bay wide receiver Christian Watson, available in 91% of Yahoo leagues, returning from the knee injury he suffered last year. Again, crowds the wide receiver room a little bit in Green Bay, but could make an impact with his deep threat ability as he starts to get healthy here. My obligatory Christian Watson waiver wire update. All right, let's move on. Let's get to the juicy stuff. I feel like it's been the juicy stuff all day, but let's talk LA Chargers tight end Arondé Gadsden, available in 96% of Yahoo leagues. Now, we talked about him last week. We talked about him on the matchup show 2 weeks in a row, but this is for real, guys. This is like 100% for real. Played his highest snap total this season while also running a season high in routes, catching all 7 of his 9 targets for 164 receiving yards and his first touchdown of the season. This was with all the pass catching options available, right? Like last week we talked about like, oh well, Will Dissly was active, and Arundel Gaston still played over him. Tyler Conklin was a healthy scratch. So this was like a concerted effort to give all the tight end snaps, or a majority of the tight end snaps, to Arundel Gaston the second. But we also had to highlight that, hey, Quentin Johnston was not available in that game. So we were I was kind of like, all right, well, how much of this is like they wanted to make a concerted effort to get Gadsden the ball and get him involved in the offense, or how much how much of that, which it definitely was, right? I don't want to say it wasn't. It definitely was. We knew that last week, just given everything that we saw. Highest snap share of the week last week, most routes last week. But we also had to remember that Quentin Johnston was out, and there were some more targets to go around, right? So this was Quentin Johnston healthy in the game, right? Lad McConkey healthy in the game, Keenan Allen healthy in the game, but Gadsden still was heavily involved, right? Still, highest snap total, highest route share, right? So with all that considered, like Gadsden he's arrived, he's real, he's legitimate. So I think we've got to consider that. I think I think he's got to be the top ad of the week. I mean, you just look at the landscape, right? There's no game breaking running back who suddenly took over, all the opportunities in their backfield. So when I look at Gadsden, right, like to me, he's got to be the top ad, right? Because he plays a 1G position. He's had 33 PPR points in week 7. All right. I think that might have been the highest total of the year for a tight end. I have to check that, but I'm pretty sure it was. And he plays in an offense that has been one of the better offenses all year, with a quarterback that's been one of the better quarterbacks all year, and Justin Herbert. And so, yeah, this is legitimate here. So Gadsden's got to be one of the top ads. So hopefully you were able to pick him up last week for free, but seeing how he's available in 96% of Yahoo leagues, probably not. All right. Let's talk about my disappointing fantasy football start of the week at the tight end position, Mason Taylor of the New York Jets. The entire Jets offense was a mess this weekend. But the Cincinnati matchup has not failed us this entire season, right? They have been the number one matchup for opposing tight ends most of the season. And that was even before last week, when they allowed each of the top 3 Pittsburgh tight ends to score a touchdown, right? Pat Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith, Darnell Washington all scored touchdowns against the Cincinnati Bengals, which makes sense because the Cincinnati Bengals, if there's one thing they know how to do, or the one thing they know how not to do, it's defend the tight end position, or not defend the tight end position, however you want to look at that. So look at Mason Taylor here. I think that, again, the matchup, the situation is scary, right? You're like, why do I want to attach myself to the Jets? I 100% understand that. Um, Justin Fields has been completely up and down. It's been a mess. But if Tyrod Taylor starts the game, if we get, that Shefty alert, that Ian Rappaport alert, Tom Pelissero, whoever it may come from, right? Of one of the Jets beat writers like Samini, Connor Hughes, Zach Rosenblatt, right? Whoever it may be, if we get that alert that Tyrod Taylor is expected to start for the New York Jets on Sunday, Mason Taylor would make a ton of sense, right? So this is a guy that you maybe don't have to add as a priority right now, but if you're looking there, you need a tight end Sunday morning, Friday afternoon. Just remember he plays Cincinnati, and they have not failed us. So anyway, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Let's move on. We've got Tampa Bay tight end Cade Otton available in 88% of Yahoo leagues, right? Look, we've talked about Otton before. We obviously understand that the injuries make him a much more relevant option here. Because when there's no injuries, he's cardio-cade. But when the injuries hit, he evolves into Mr. Necessary, and we love a Mr. Necessary, right? Wayne Gallman was like one of the first Mr. Necessaries. I don't know if you guys remember Wayne Gallman, but go back and check out the year Wayne Gallman was like a necessary RB2 because Saquon Barkley was injured. But Cade Otton, he goes from cardio-cade to Mr. Necessary anytime there's an injury in the Tampa Bay pass catching, amongst the Tampa Bay pass catchers, right? Had 9 targets, 7 catches, 65 yards, and what's like considered like a bad matchup, right? And now he gets New Orleans on deck, which New Orleans, that's a pretty solid matchup here for opposing tight ends, right? If I look at this, 15th, right? They look middle of the road against opposing tight ends, and that's just coming off a game where they played the Chicago Bears, who don't really utilize the tight end very much, but so Cade Otton, cardio-cade, Mr. Necessary, as he is now known for the next few weeks until something changes there. Let's move on to Cleveland tight end Harold Fannin Jr., available in 41% Yahoo leagues. Look, it was an okay day for Fannin with Njoku sidelined. He has another decent matchup on deck, but again, he's proving that he's a floor option, and naturally, because I said that, he's going to go out and score double-digit PPR points. So be prepared for that to happen. I don't know, like me and Harold Fannin just can't get it together, right? Like we just can't figure it out. It's like I prop him up, then he just floor play, then the Toy Story meme where I'm done with him, and then he all of a sudden is like, 15 PPR points. I pick him back up again. Right. Anyway, 2 tight end league, true story, right? I started Harold Fannin Jr. and Mason Taylor over Arande Gadsden this past week. Luckily, it didn't cost me my matchup, but I was going into Monday night like stressing it because of that. So anyway, let's talk Denver tight end Juwan Johnson. Oh, not Juwan Johnson. Denver tight end Evan Ingram. Right. Speaking of floor options, Ingram came through against, he came through again with 5 catches for 42 yards. It's back-to-back games where he's had that exact stat line. Did see a season high 8 targets though, and does get Dallas next. So definitely worth a look there. Next up, we got New Orleans tight end Juwan Johnson, available in 70% of Yahoo leagues. Juwan Johnson was literally the Undertaker meme this past weekend. He came back from the fantasy dead with 5 catches on 7 targets for 79 receiving yards. And now he's matched up against a Tampa Bay defense that, pending the results of Monday Night Football, I have to look. I think that was probably a little worse after yesterday. But coming into Monday night, allowed the 4th most PPR points to opposing tight ends over their last 3 games. So definitely a good spot here for Juwan Johnson. Next up, we got Cincinnati tight end Noah Fant, available in 99% of Yahoo leagues. Played a season high in snaps, ran a season high in routes, caught 4 of 4 targets for 44 yards and a score. We anticipated that with the injury to Mike Gesicki, but he now gets a New York Jets defense that has allowed the 8th most PPR points to opposing tight ends over their last 3 games. Next up, New Orleans tight end Taysom Hill, available in 94% of Yahoo leagues. Look, I'm going to keep talking about him, and now there's like a legitimate reason, because what I've been saying over the last few weeks has now come to fruition, right? Hill played 9 snaps this past week. He saw 2 targets, 2 rush attempts. Sure, great, whatever. 4 touches, John. What are we talking about? But like I said at the top of the show, Kendra Miller out for the year with the torn ACL. So that could lead to more opportunities for Taysom Hill, especially out of the backfield around the goal line. So there's an opportunity here for Taysom Hill to be, fantasy usable, right? Obviously, the Kendra Miller injury could boost the floor here for Alvin Kamara a little bit, but I definitely expect a little bump here for Taysom Hill. All right, so Adam Y Refros. I don't. Sorry, Adam. Adam's saying yo. I'm gonna call you Adam, but he's saying yo. He says, "What's up, dude? What's up, Adam? I was thinking of picking up Mahomes. If Mahomes is available in your league, pick him up. Take him. Just grab him. Top quarterback in fantasy right now. Yeah. Any thoughts on that? My thought is to add Mahomes. I don't know who your quarterback is, but it's almost unlikely that they are performing better than Mahomes. But yeah, scoop him up. Scoop that guy up. Pretty good at football. Let's see if Adam comes back with any more context there, but that is my answer. Grab Mahomes. All right. Next up, let's talk about these defenses and the top defense of the week, right? I'm just gonna, just throw it out there. Top defense of the week, Indianapolis, available 51% of Yahoo leagues, 14.5-point favorites on the road against Tennessee. Yes, do that. Make that happen. Next up, we'll talk Cincinnati, available in 98% of Yahoo leagues, 4.5-point favorites at home against the New York Jets. Make that happen. Next up, we got Tampa Bay defense, available in 49% of Yahoo leagues, 6.5-point favorites on the road against the New Orleans Saints. Tampa Bay defense, been a little beatable, but Spencer Rattler just gave us 4 turnovers, so there's possibility that maybe he can give that to us again. Next up, we got the Atlanta defense, 7.5-point favorites at home against Miami. Miami is, they're right there. They're right there to ending the season, done. Right? I mean, I get it. There's still more games left, but you got a Miami team that's hanging on by a thread. Just got blown out on the road by the Browns. Now they got to go on the road again to Atlanta, and that Atlanta defense is a very good one, right? Jeff Ulbrich there and that staff, they're doing really well with that Atlanta defense. They make a lot of plays. They get a lot of pressure on the quarterback, and they could put Miami out of their misery right now on Sunday. 7.5-point favorites at home. That's crazy. Crazy. Anyway, next up, we got the Buffalo defense, available in 61% of Yahoo leagues. They just came off by their 7.5-point favorites on the road against Carolina. So they haven't been I've been complaining about Buffalo defense because I've picked them up in a couple leagues, and it's they even when you watch them, it's they give up plays, they give up scores, they give up touchdowns that they don't look like the Buffalo defense that I think we're used to seeing, especially under Sean McDermott. But definitely, gonna play the odds here. Vegas is telling us that they're 7.5-point favorites on the road, so let's play into that a little bit. All right, y'all. That is gonna wrap up the Week 8 waiver show. Appreciate y'all for vibing with me. So, as always, it's that time of the year where the depth and the smart moves make all the difference. So stay active, stay aggressive. Make sure you're always looking 1 week ahead, right? Also, who you dropping this week? Travion Henderson. I'm not gonna drop him, but if you are sitting there wondering, John, can I drop this guy? By all means, you can go ahead and do that. Me personally, I'm not gonna drop him just because I know that the moment I drop him, someone else will pick him up. And maybe that's a good thing, right? Maybe I'm stuck here in this place where like I'm stuck believing, but got out carried by Ramondre Stevenson and Terrell Jennings. Yeah, not great. But if you're sitting there, you need a roster spot, especially if you're in a shallower league. Yeah, Trayvon Henderson to the waiver wire, it makes a ton of sense by all means. But like I said, stay aggressive. Look 1 week ahead, right? Like you got bye weeks coming up. If you know it, try to get ahead of those. Who's the quarterback I'm going to play that week? Who's the defense I'm going to pick up next week, right? You're sitting there Sunday night, Monday night. You got an extra roster spot. Go ahead, drop a player, pick them up. Pick up that defense that's playing because maybe they're available or maybe they're on bye, so on and so forth. So if you got value out of this morning's streams, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications so you don't miss the matchup show, which is going to air Friday 7 a.m. Eastern. So plus we got the Sunday morning Q&A where we get to start sick questions. That's over at patreon.com/FFDX. So make sure you head over there so you get access to that Q&A. Make sure so you get access to the weekly waiver wire article. You get access to the expanded rankings for $1 a month. And also that fantasy football diagnostics cheat sheet, 100% free. So make sure you tap into that. It's a wonderful resource for waiver wire edge, matchup edges, player trends, rankings, so much more than that. So appreciate everyone who tuned into the live and showed love as always. Appreciate everyone who's listening, whether you're listening to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, or Amazon. Make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell as well. And appreciate y'all for tapping in. So good luck on waivers this week. Let's get those wins, and I'll catch y'all on Friday for the matchup show. Have a good one, everybody. Talk to y'all later.